said. I'm a senior here at Ball State and a history major. I will be presenting a paper that I originally wrote for History 461, Development of Greek Civilization, for Dr. Dmitriev. And let me begin briefly by introducing the figures I'll be mentioning throughout the paper. I'll begin, of course, with the author, Deborah Hamels, whose book I am reviewing. Then Neaira, the most prominent person in the book. She's the defendant in the case of trying Neaira. Stephanos, also a major player, is her husband. Proxenos and Ariston are Stephanos' sons. Theomnestos is the person who formally brings charges against Neaira, and he is assisted by Apollodoros, his father-in-law, and also Stephanos' arch-enemy. Trying Neaira, the story of a courtesan's scandalous life in ancient Greece, was, in my opinion, a well-written book that did a good job of balancing the academic aspect with the entertaining, disguising the scholarly, and making it look as if the popular culture might enjoy it as well. That being said, I will contend that Hamel, in addressing the question of Neaira, inadvertently misled her readers as to the severity to which Apollodoros hated Stephanos. And this is evident in her lack of scrutiny of the original Greek. This is not to say that she didn't make an argument concerning these two. Nevertheless, the emphasis she put on the life of Neaira ambiguously deceives the reader surrounding this important moment in the history of ancient Greece. Now, to substantiate my claim, I will look at 4 specific topics covered in Neaira. I will elucidate that the author's explanation of prostitution in Athens misses why Apollodoros focuses so much attention on this particular facet of Neaira's life. Number 2, I will demonstrate that Apollodoros' intentional language was not given proper coverage. Number 3, I will contend that the chapter devoted to the feud between Apollodoros and Stephanos was given enough coverage, but it lacked proper exposure as a part of Hamel's overall appraisal. And number 4, I will conclude by arguing that the author's failure to inform the audience sooner of the anticlimactic finish to the book takes away from her overall academic goal in recounting the details in Against Neaira, starting with her characterization of prostitution in Athens. To be sure, Hamel does a wonderful job of describing prostitution in the ancient world. She sort of breaks down the quote-unquote ranks when it comes to how certain classes of prostitutes are viewed in public and how they are compensated. She begins with the lowest ranking porni. These streetwalkers, as she refers to them, make up to a drachma depending upon which position was preferred by the customer. Then she mentions the Alatrides, the middle class of the Athenian sex trade, who mixed their sexual services with the playing of instruments. They made more money per transaction than the porni, and they typically performed amongst somewhat more respectable crowds. However, this is by no means the rule. She finishes her definitions by defining for us the job Neaira had held for so many years, that of hetairai, literally meaning female companions. These prostitutes were the elite class, if the analogy isn't too misleading. They were still prostitutes, however, they pulled down the most bank and had much more freedom over with whom they would negotiate for their services. They also provided music and conversation as a way to supplement their ultimate purpose, which was sex. And to be sure, sex was their utility. All too often, much more is made of the role of hetairai than was reality. No matter what level of prostitute you found yourself to be, there was, however, a market for your services, which leads me to my first criticism. Hamel's description of the sex trade, in my opinion, implies there were non-stop orgies participated in by anyone who wanted to. This is a common fallacy about the ancient world. See Mel Brooks' film, The History of the World. For example, she mentions the studs that might adorn the sole of a porni's shoe, saying "alkaluthe," or in Greek, "follow me," which is a generalization that reminds me of some of the misrepresentations that were made in the movie 300, such as the portrayal of Xerxes coming down from his throne walking on steps made of some of his loyal followers. It makes a great attention-grabbing detail, but it isn't an accurate portrayal of how things really were. Ultimately, I believe Hamill's portrayal takes her narrative off track and helps her to ignore something that she missed altogether, a more important point, in my opinion. Apollodorus takes extreme liberty with the truth and goes after the hearts of the jurors by using very distinctly damaging language to tear down Neaira and, in effect, Stephanos as well. Which brings me to Apollodorus' salacious language in the case. Hamill makes it clear that Apollodorus plays it fast and loose with the truth in the trial against Neaira. For example, he attempts to prove in a roundabout manner that Proxenos and Ariston are the biological sons of Neaira. Hamill concludes that Apollodorus gives us no good reason to believe that. However, the most compelling and persuasive portion of his prosecution is the deliberate way in which he characterizes Neaira negatively with respect to the way he addresses her during the trial.